Copenhagen erupts. Her Royal Highness Princess Leonor meets the Prince of Denmark ring. A city. Silent. Waiting. Then, eruption. Copenhagen did not expect this. Her Royal Highness Princess Leonor. Scene. In Denmark. Crowds screaming. Cameras flashing. But wait, this was no ordinary meeting. This was the moment history shifted. Why? Because when Leonor met the Prince of Denmark, nothing would ever be the same. The scene was breathtaking. The quiet streets of Copenhagen suddenly alive with voices, gasps, chants of excitement. Ordinary citizens turned into witnesses of history, drawn by something far larger than royal duty, a love story unfolding in real time. But let's pause for a moment. Why was Princess Leonor in Denmark? Why now? And why did this meeting ignite such an unstoppable wave of emotion, from Copenhagen to Madrid, from the heart of Europe to the world beyond? Because this wasn't just a casual royal visit. This wasn't routine diplomacy. This was the future Queen of Spain, crossing borders, stepping into another kingdom, not for politics, not for ceremony, but for something far deeper, far more human. Love. And love, when it belongs to royalty, never walks quietly. Later in this story, you'll hear about the moment when Copenhagen's citizens shouted one name so loudly that even Leonor herself paused in disbelief. But first, we need to understand how we got here. 1. The background. Princess Leonor, Her Royal Highness, the future Queen of Spain. Raised in palaces, trained for duty, prepared for a crown. A life mapped out before she could even walk. And yet, despite the weight of history pressing on her shoulders, she carried herself with grace, with a quiet determination that Spain has come to love deeply. But Leonor is also 19. A young woman who dreams, who feels, who dares to imagine a life where duty and love do not cancel each other out. Enter the Prince of Denmark. Young, tall, charismatic, with a presence that blends modern charm with centuries of royal tradition. The Danish people call him their future. The Spanish now whisper his name beside Leonor's. When the two appeared together in Copenhagen, it was not staged for politics, it was the meeting of two paths, converging under the world's gaze. 2. Copenhagen's reaction. It began with a rumor. A flight. A private motorcade moving through the Danish capital. And then confirmation. Her Royal Highness Princess Leonor had arrived. At first, whispers. Then, within minutes, social media feeds exploded. Photos appeared. Leonor stepping gracefully from a car, her posture regal, her smile genuine. And beside her, him. The prince. And Copenhagen erupted. People abandoned their coffee shops, their daily errands. They ran to the palace gates, to the streets, to the squares. They wanted to see this for themselves. It wasn't about royalty anymore. It was about witnessing a moment where borders blurred, where history seemed to bend towards something unexpected. Later in this video, you'll hear about the emotional moment when a Danish child handed Leonor a flower, whispering words that brought her eyes to tears. But first, let's dive into the tension inside the palaces themselves. 3. Family tension. Because love is never simple. And in the world of monarchies, it is never private. In Spain, King Felipe and Queen Letizia had raised Leonor with strict expectations. The future of Spain's monarchy rested on her. Every move mattered. Every choice had consequences. In Denmark, the royal family faced its own questions. Would the nation accept a Spanish princess as their future queen consort? Would tradition bend to romance? And yet, when Leonor and the prince walked side by side, none of that mattered to the people. What mattered was the look they shared. The laughter, too real to be rehearsed. The kind of eye contact that no court advisor can script. It was a reminder, behind crowns, titles, and history, there are hearts. And those hearts beat just as fiercely as any of ours. 4. The private meeting. Later that day, behind closed palace doors, Leonor and the prince were seen walking through the gardens. Away from cameras, away from chants, just the two of them. What did they say? No one knows for sure. But witnesses described the scene, her hand brushing his sleeve, his head lowered as if listening with every ounce of attention. A conversation that looked less like duty and more like destiny. And here's where the story twists again. Because even as Copenhagen erupted in joy, there were those who whispered of risks, of political storms, of centuries-old traditions that might resist this union. But Leonor, with the quiet strength inherited from her mother, and the steel will of her father, seemed unafraid. 5. The turning point. Later in this video, you'll hear about the symbolic gesture that sent shivers through both kingdoms. But first, the turning point. It came when the prince, standing before the crowd, introduced Leonor not simply as a guest, but as Her Royal Highness, the future Queen of Spain. The crowd roared. Cheers thundered across Copenhagen, and in that roar, something unspoken became real. The people approved. Spain's princess, Denmark's prince, together, before the eyes of the world. 6. The flower. Now, remember the child I mentioned earlier. It happened at the palace gates. A small Danish girl stepped forward, clutching a white flower. Security hesitated, but Leonor reached out herself. She bent down. She listened. The child whispered, "For love. For both of you." And Leonor's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, unguarded, uncalculated. She pressed the flower to her chest. And in that instant, the story no longer belonged to the royals. It belonged to the people. 7. What comes next? So, what now? Will this love story lead to engagement? To marriage? To two thrones united by something deeper than treaties? Or will the weight of crowns, the demands of duty, and the caution of royal advisors threaten what has just begun? We don't yet know. But what we do know is this: Copenhagen will never forget that day. Spain will never forget that day. And history will write of it, not as a political summit, but as the moment two young royals dared to meet not just as heirs, but as humans searching for love. The story of Princess Leonor and the Prince of Denmark is no longer theirs alone. It belongs to every heart that believes love can defy borders, traditions, and expectations. So, when Copenhagen erupted, it wasn't just for a princess and a prince. It was for all of us, for the belief that even in a world ruled by crowns and duty, love can still lead the way. And this is only the beginning.